Hello. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. I'm Sharon Harrell, Community Engagement Manager at the DIA. Thank you. Tonight, I'm so excited to present our annual writing program with Inside Out Literary Arts. Black is Beautiful, a poetry performance, is a master's level poetry presentation with valuable insights on the creative writing process, followed by audience Q&A. So, as you enjoy the performances, please enter your questions into the chat. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce Nancy Barr, the James Pearson Duffy Curator of Photography and Department Head of Prints, Drawings, and Photographs at the DIA.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I was muted there. Thanks, Sharon. A few blips tonight, but thanks to all for showing up, and thanks to the authors who've taken inspiration from this really fantastic exhibition we have up right now at the DIA called Black is Beautiful, the Photography of Kwame Brathwaite. The exhibition is currently on view at the DIA, and it presents a survey of early work by activist, artist, and photographer Kwame Brathwaite, who was born in 1938 in Brooklyn, New York. The exhibition is also curated by his son, Kwame Brathwaite Jr., who's the director of the Kwame Brathwaite Archive, and it examines his work from the 1950s and 1960s, much of which was made in Harlem, New York. It includes jazz photography, portraiture, fashion photography, and photojournalism. The title takes its name from Black is Beautiful, a cultural movement taking roots in the U.S. in the 1960s and 1970s. Many of the photographs in the exhibition show the Grandassa models, an all-Black modeling troupe who embraced the Black is Beautiful moment by celebrating and promoting natural hair and African-inspired clothing. You'll see some of the photographs of the Grandassas in the presentation tonight. I'd like to just take a quick minute to thank our sponsors and supporters. The exhibition is supported by the National Endowment for the Arts and the Photographic Arts Council Los Angeles. At the Detroit Institute of Arts, major support is generously provided by Cadillac, with additional support provided by individuals Lisa Pernick and Bruce Israel, Maureen and Roy S. Roberts, and Rhonda D. Welburn. The exhibition will be up at the DIA through Sunday, January 16th, 2022, so there's still some time to see it. And please remember as well that admission to the museum is free for residents of Macomb, Oakland, and Wayne County, for those of you who live in Michigan. And make your reservations at our website at dia.org. I'm going to turn the program over now to Elise Alusi, Director of School and Community Partnerships, Inside Out Literary Arts. Welcome, Elise.
Thank you so much, Nancy, and thank you to Sharon Harrell and the Detroit Institute of Arts. Inside Out Literary Arts provides life-enhancing creative writing programs in schools, after school, and in the community through partnerships like this one. Programs are led by professional writers who serve as instructors and mentors to thousands of students each year. You can find more information about the writers performing this evening by visiting their websites, which you'll find links to in the description. The writers performing will present in the following order. Please join me in welcoming Brittany Rogers, Kweku Abimbola, Mars, Kahn Santori Davison, LaShaun Phoenix Moore, and Mahogany Jones.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and humbled at the ability to write towards this amazing exhibit. Before I begin reading my poem, I actually want to talk a little bit about my writing process and about the process of writing this poem specifically. I'm a mom of 3, so sometimes finding time to write can be a bit of an adventure. And can often mean that I'm like really squeezing out moments first thing in the morning, late at night, in between cooking something. So it's really important to me that when I sit down to write, I already have an image in my mind or a concept that I've been thinking on or something that I've been meditating on. And so this process began with me visiting the exhibit and taking pictures and just sitting and jotting down some notes and first impressions. And one of the things that I loved about this portrait was the power and intensity, I think, in the woman's gaze, and also how much of her skin tone, how much of like that richness in a lot of ways reminded me of the woman that I know and that I love. Reminded me of myself, reminded me of my mother, and thinking about how instrumental something like that would have been when I was younger to see, right? About how much more centered in myself I would have been if my early images of Black women in the media, right? Not myself, but in the media, how much different it would have been if those people looked like me, if they were as dark as I was specifically, if their hair was natural, if just that natural beauty was shown. So this image immediately drew itself to me, and I began to take notes on it. I began to just kind of like think about how it made me feel, think about how audacious it was for this picture to be here. And then that also led me to even thinking about the audacity of the exhibit, about how unfair it is to have to say Black is beautiful, right? To not just have that assumption. And so that led me to the writing of my poem, which is directly correlated to this wonderful piece of artwork here. So without further ado, I'm going to read that. I'm not supposed to call myself pretty, but I am. Skin slick as Woodward after a winter snowstorm. Hair cold thick, all lump and soot and don't touch. Trust, I'll leave a blemish. I'm trying to say something about vanity. I'm trying to say something about the failure of your vision. You are not supposed to want me, and this is supposed to make me resent myself in exchange. But see how you stare while I look away. Your eyes pulled towards my cheekbones like leashed pit bulls. I did not drag you here, spitting mad as you are. Don't you know good art should light you a fire? Your eyes are snarling, and all I have done is exist in your direction. You aren't trying to make it weird. I know. I know. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Brittany, for that amazing poem. It's truly an honor to share the stage with such sensational poets this evening. And my name is Kweku, and I'm going to be reading today, also inspired by the Black is Beautiful exhibit. I was privileged to visit the exhibit a few times, and what struck me the most was all the images of liberated Black hair. And it made me think of my own hair care journey, which is a bit unique because as an African male, growing up, I had one haircut and it was to clear it all off. That's what my dad used to say. But as I grew up and left home, like my hair became something special to me. I got to braid it and all these things, Exhibit A. So I brought my full self into the exhibit when I was asked to write. And since Afrocentricity is so central to the Black is Beautiful exhibit as a whole, I wanted to highlight the historical nature of Black hair in my poem, Black hair as symbolic of beauty, heritage, lineage, and especially inheritance. So in doing so, I turned to the Adinkra symbol, Dwafe, which comes from my tribe, the Kahn tribe of Ghana, and it symbolizes beauty and self-care. And as far as my process for writing this poem goes, usually when I write, I'm a morning writer. I like to wake up early and write as much as possible. Music is also very central to my writing process, Afro beats. And when I was visiting the exhibit, I was trying to think, how can I marry this like Afrocentric identity that I carry with me with this idea of Black is beautiful? And I kept returning to the image of combing hair, which I thought was like, obviously, like you see the image here, you have all these beautiful beaming afros, and this tool that I have here is what was used to keep that hair pristine. And for me, lastly, my advice to writers would be, don't be afraid to write about your identity and your culture, and also pay close attention to what haunts you and what you can't shake loose. And my poem is entitled Grandasa. 1. Black is, Black as, Black am, Black are, Black we, Black day, Black be. Do you know where your hair begins? Your hair is first the remnant of war, war without, war within. Next, it is the chamber of rice, seeds, and cowrie. Then it is the courier's canvas. Then it belongs to your grandmother, and on Sunday mornings it is seared, elixired, and seared again. Now it's a dance to feel its root again. And the dance to feel your hair's root is like the Adowa. The Adowa is a dance of two, and all the while you won't know who's leading whom, who's following whom, who's possessing whom. Yes, the dancers marvel and mangle each other, louder than lodestars, louder than Black is, Black as, Black am, Black are, Black we, Black day, Black be, too. You can tell the age of a comb the same as a human. Check to see how many teeth it's missing. May your hair charm the teeth of each comb it meets. May you collect the broken teeth of every comb your hair charms and fashion it into jewelry. First, make an anklet. With more, make bracelets, then necklaces, and then your crown. Keep and grow these gems of your hair's hunger. Make note of each day your hair takes a new prisoner, and keep this record. You'll need it to recollect time, because Black hair is a measure of time. So each night, keep this time. First, pour a healthy crest of Black castor oil. Let it bleed from the crease estuaries of your palms and pool viscous onto your crown, a crown seen ripe for scalping. You'll still anoint yourself each night, seeping your curls from spire to root, coating each coil equally. Don't make of your hair a gentle shadow or provide less girth for the scalper. Keep its flourish. Yes, tonight, wrap it again in secret silk, to silk it sure, to silk its keep. Hidden wholly from the moon, hidden only from the moon. Thank you.
Hey, what's up, everyone? It's such an honor to be here with all of you. Kweku, thank you so much for that poem. I'm really carrying with me a thing that you said in the process, which is to pay attention to what haunts you. That's really sitting with me. Hi, my name is Mars. I use they and he pronouns. And it's been such a complete honor to sit in this work and to have had the opportunity to explore this exhibit. And much like many of the other poets that are presenting here, in my process, I began with first viewing the work. And the thing that really sat with me in viewing Kwame Brathwaite's work was the incredible amount of tenderness and care that were in those photographs, and also the great strength that it took to take these photographs and to be an active player in documenting this history in Harlem. The image that you see that I have selected was one that I couldn't turn away from. I found myself returning back to this image and thinking a lot about what was happening in this image, right? And growing up in Detroit, which is a Black city, right, and having the privilege to be around Black folks, I was really moved by this image and really moved by the all of the questions that I had in this image. And I entered into the process of writing about this poem or writing about this image from asking several questions, right? thinking a lot about what was being said in the image, right? There are young folks that are surrounding the car that are in conversation with each other, right? Some are really expressive and having a really amazing time, and some look very contemplative, right? One thing that really called to me was the colors that were in the photograph as well. Everyone seemed to be dressed in similar tones, which was really important. One thing that I really enjoy doing is researching. So before writing this poem, one thing that became really important was to ask myself what was happening in 1965, right? What kind of music was playing through these speakers, right? One thing that I found was that Miles Davis released ESP a day after or a day before this image was actually taken, right? And we know that Kwame Brathwaite was deeply influenced by jazz, and I wanted to find ways to bring those elements into the poem as well. One thing that felt really important was to find myself surrounded in the historical perspective of what was going on during that time. And one thing that I found was that just like we deal with today, the year previous to this photograph being taken, there was an incident of police brutality in which a Black boy's life was taken, and sitting with the rebellion that happened in Harlem and all over New York, for that young Black boy, and thinking a lot about the strength that it actually takes um, for these folks to still come together for the Marcus Garvey Day Parade, and what that said for their liberation and what they were asking for in their liberation, right? What they were taking, the practice of their liberation. So I began to ask, you know, what was it like to get ready for the parade, right? What are these models and the people that are in the photograph? What are they doing? What are they saying? So I wrote a poem that's set in two parts, and I'll read that poem to you all now. Grandassa models at Marcus Garvey Day Parade, Harlem, circa 1965. Cultural identity is a matter of becoming as well as of being. Stuart Hall. The woman in orange, in preparation for the parade. There goes Miles and his trumpet again, crafting sound akin to tomorrow's new light. He blows, works those finger buttons to make a kind of black magic we swear knows us by name. Each syncopated rhythm giving all who listen a new way to move through this life or the next one. 81 stirs in me the kind of Black woman I know myself to be, sultry and strong, proud and lacking nothing. All of Grandassa is that too. The kind of woman so proud to be Black, so beautiful in all our Black, they can't help but look back at us twice. I watch Harlem shake itself awake, those young boys playing in the streets, hot combs warming on the stove, Mr. So-and-so shining his car for the parade. If the sun don't shine today, I'll do its job instead. Consider it a birthright. I applaud the curves of my face, the arch of my brow, my lashes' natural curve. The parade calls for orange today, for orange draped on my dark skin. I invite them to take me in, for their eyes to notice my most prominent bones, cheeks and clavicle, my slender nose bowing before its width, the soft round shoulders, the soft round of my shoulders, how I rest my hands gently in my lap. I beg no man to see what he doesn't already see. The woman in brown gazes at the woman in orange during the procession. I beg no man to see what he doesn't already see, but perhaps won't make it back to that land I never lay eyes on. What raises in me the anthem of our being Black, my people, all jazz and wood pipe, all kente cloth and gold, all frankincense and myrrh, my cane syrup mouth dripping fantasy, my skin damp with fresh dew from Harlem's sticky summer heat. Last year, they killed a boy, and the year before that one too, and the year before that one too. And each time we declare ourselves a new country, try leaving behind the sorrow of the last one. Today feels different. The music of joy careening down the street, children and their curious chatter surrounding the car, every stoop field, whole neighborhood waiting for us to ride by. My sister, tell me I am awake. Sing to me that one tune, the one where Sam promises a change coming. How it go? It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Santori Davison, and I had the pleasure of writing about the Black is Beautiful exhibit for two different publications prior to giving this opportunity to write a poem for it. And one of the first things that I noticed as I looked at the images was that the Black is Beautiful movement was its own separate movement that occurred simultaneously along with civil rights, along with Black Power. You know, it wasn't one of those things where that the Black is Beautiful movement was a subcategory. I had never realized that Black is Beautiful movement, that energy, you know, it was its own thing, spearheaded by photographer and activist Kwame Brathwaite, and it had its own moving parts, and it created its own energy and its own audience and its own participants. You know, so in writing a poem about it, I actually wrote two that I trashed first. The first one I wrote, you know, it was a lot of compliments and appreciative words and about Black women and about Black beauty. And I thought, man, this is too corny. I'm not reading this. So then I wrote a second poem that dug into the representation and misrepresentation of Black women over the last 30 to 40 years and the politics behind that within the Black is Beautiful movement that's fleshed out in Kwame Brathwaite's photography. But then I thought, well, that's too aggressive and too preachy. So I trashed that one. Well, then I untrashed them and put them both together. And so this is what I got. Black is beautiful. Natural, as defined by Merriam-Webster's dictionary, means not having any extra substances or chemicals added, not containing anything artificial. I'm going to say that again for the people in the back of the bougie bookstore, the corner store, the produce store, and the beauty supply store. Not having anything extra substances or chemicals added. See, that's why as kids, we hopped the fence to get a couple of Mr. George's Honey Crisp apples because they didn't have the waxy coating like the ones at the corner market. And Aunt Elvin's North Carolina backyard had collard greens and yams that didn't have things we couldn't pronounce like sulfur dioxide and chloroform. When my cousin asked Aunt Elvin, why don't you just buy your veggies from the market like everybody else? She responded, because I don't need all that mess for my greens to be good. And so the first time I walked into the DIA and I looked at Kwame Brathwaite's larger than life images of these grandiose models, these huge 5x5 larger than life portraits of these captivating Black women. I mean, women so beautiful. I wanted to ask, is that a afro or a halo? What kind of stories can the thick coils of that hair tell me about? Because the unfiltered pores in your skin feels like a rebellion was on the horizon. And in the back of my mind, I could hear my Aunt Elvin saying they didn't need all that mess for them to be good. And I stared long enough to where I tried to Marty McFly myself back to 1969 because we were fighting for Black power, integration, and economic freedom. But we were also fighting for the liberation of beauty. Because revolution starts in the mirror, and there's a revolution in accepting that the best parts of you are already good enough, and those parts don't need to be modified, straightened out, lightened, or whitened. There's power in that, y'all. And I wish I could hang around 1969 long enough to tell these Black women what's coming, because they're going to create the crack epidemic and make you the mascot of it. They're going to say welfare is a problem and you're the queens of it. They're going to tell you it's your fault you're a single mother. It's your fault you're in student loan debt, that you're too strong, you're too weak, your butt's too big, your butt's too small, and there will be no empathy, no understanding, just racism and blame. And I mean, hell, y'all, it took them 131 years to admit Aunt Jemima was a stereotype. So what the hell do you expect? So when you look in the mirror, you have to understand you're exactly what Kwame showed you were in those photographs in 1969. You're still that. You're a walking representation of the sun, your God body, angelic daughters of the ancestors, the chosen ones, the great ones, healers, mentors, teachers, leaders, mothers, sisters, aunts, and caregivers, your goddamn monuments. And you're all these things inside and out. With or without the lashes, with or without the Mac, with or without the Yaki. And if Brother Kwame was a millennial and had taken these photographs with an iPhone and posted them in 2022 on IG, he will be getting all the cool millennial hashtags like hashtag he understood the assignment, hashtag facts, bro, hashtag he gets it, hashtag natural beauty matters, hashtag black is beautiful. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Phoenix. It is so refreshing to hear Black men honor Black women. Kahn, your poem was absolutely soul stirring. Thank you so much for that. I had a chance to check out Brathwaite's exhibit in the DIA 3 times, and my reaction to the work was exactly the same all 3 times, similar to Mars. I had an instant soundtrack that kicked in that said, "Who's that lady?" when I saw all of the Grandessa models. I'd never seen anything that looked like me, that huge and that beautiful in a space before. And I was moved to really drink in the idea of how beautiful Black really is. So those were extremely proud moments. And to have the opportunity to be able to present my work, I approached the poem like I approach life, spicy and with sass. And when I saw these beautiful Grandessa models, the first thing that I thought is that these chicks, they know that they're gorgeous. They have the way that Brathwaite framed them, showed them, didn't distort any of their beauty, baby. You couldn't tell those women anything when they got behind the lens of his camera. And so my poem centered around just going off on being a fine Black woman and knowing it for myself. And so if I had anything to give to an aspiring writer, it's to know, just from this example, you've heard so many different styles and different viewpoints of voice when they brought that to their poems. Bring your voice to your work. You don't have to be anybody else. Who you are, as you are, sassy, spicy, tattooed, big red hair, that is more than enough. Do you. If Brathwaite didn't tell us anything, not only is Black beautiful, we as ourselves are beautiful. That's what the exhibition did for me, and I hope that this little spicy rant does that for you. Black is beautiful. Honey, God already wrote this poem, rolled up their sleeves, focused on the divine feminine, and sketched out its own image, and she looked like me. I said it. Fine and timeless like Grandessa models, all raw and naturally beautiful, celebrating every facet of themselves, of us. Our code-switching tongues and full supple lips, our wide-brimmed noses and curvaceous hips, our earthy hues just shining on the world. Auburn, bister, brick and beige, cocoa, copper, have your way. God is a brown woman, just like me. And she birthed and mothered this whole world. See, there's a creator's pride dedicated to the sass in a Black woman's back. A whole psalm spins on repeat when she claps back at haters who spend millions to plump lips and boobs and booties that look like hers. We have so much to unlearn a stolen people who can't seem to uncrack the whip of self-hate and disenfranchisement, but Brathwaite had a plan. See, he altered nothing when he shot images of the soul of us, showed Black women full of glory, holy to gaze upon, in our own skin, no additives, no preservatives, just gorgeous, original, nappy, uniquely putting the hue in human Black is masterpiece, is worthy, is genius, is exemplary, is powerful, is inventive, is exotic, is proud, is divine, is source, is creator, is beautiful. And that's it. That's the poem. Thank you.
And wow, that's it. And that's the poem. I just am overwhelmed with just so much pride after hearing all of the poets read, and definitely you, Phoenix. Thank you for that piece. I want to say I was drawn to a few images. I love this work. But this really in particular drew me because I think as most Black women or Black girls, hair is a thing, right? And it's almost like a rite of passage, and to be able to do your own thing with your hair, to be able to weave it, to braid it, to do whatever. But what had me land on this piece in particular was a general conversation I wound up having with some girl friends about how us having to alter in order to fit in order to accommodate different spaces has damaged our hair so much. And so when I saw this Wigs Parisian protest, it really spoke to me. I currently have locks, and trust, I'm all about switching it up. So I might switch it up, but to have the freedom to choose to have locks and to just hold that space and to say, no, you don't get to tell me what is acceptable. You don't get to tell me what the standard of beauty is. Like, I get to define that in my own sense. Was just really important to me. And so that's why I chose this piece. My writing process has been more like Brittany's. It's been really interesting since having an 18-month-old, which you probably hear chiming in the background. So it's been different. So I've been sneaking bites to just kind of like read over the work and taking the images several times, taking in times early in the morning, taking in times late at night to write. And if I would say anything, I think it would be to just turn it upside down. Do your best to turn yourself inside out and turn what it is that you want to put on the page. Just let it all out. So with no further ado, I want to share my piece, Bad Hair. When it comes to hair, there are two classifications. There's good hair, and then there's bad hair. Say we have bad hair, and we do. Our hair is big, bad, big brother almighty. Bad is move, get out the way, is you're not the boss of me, is, as I stated per my previous email, is pay me what you owe me. Oh, and you owe me. Our hair is get up, stand up, speak out, not interested in playing nice, does not want to go along to get along. A reminder that at any moment, he can pop off. A swollen rumbling of civil disruption. Each coil armed with tear gas and Molotov, each kink donned with grenade and public disturbance. Employers can't afford that kind of risk. Need our hair to be a little bit more compliant, malleable, relaxed. Need our presence not to be so loud all the time. Marketers need us to believe that we are not enough, that we need more, that we need the silky smooth, the switch it up, the cover up. How much longer will we be covered up? Covered up by ocean floor, by flame, by bottomless grave, and by shame. We are not interested in being ashamed of hair that is both crown and kingdom. both halo and heaven on earth, the one we may only know. So that's why God gave it to us specifically. It's corner stoop secrets, passed down recipes of cook up rice, black eyed peas. It's good juju and grandma's prayers. It's reminder to stay soft but strong. Remember to recoil when the water falls. Reminder to bask in the oil and the shine. So no, thank you. No, thank you, Wigs Parisian. Do not set up shop in Harlem or on the South Side or on the East Side or the West Side or the D or the LTA or in Compton. Do not set up shop in effort to dismantle our sense of self and worth and beauty. No, thank you.
Wow. Art is poetry. Poetry is art. They really brought those images to life. And if you hadn't seen the exhibition, I know you want to see it now because they brought life into each and every piece. And I'm excited to continue the writer's instructional insights with the audience Q&A. If you haven't done so already, please enter your questions into the chat and we will get it started. And I will start with one. So is writing for poetry, for performance, different than writing for the page? And if so, how is it different? How is the approach different? Anyone? You can give a finger up or hand up or whatever. Let me know. Okay, Kweku.
Yes. I can say that I don't really have a background in like performance poetry. So for me, the process of writing for the page is a bit quieter. You know, like I don't have to speak it out loud, but for a performance poet, like I have to revise much more according to sound. You know, like I'll think about things, especially like if I'm trying to commit something to memory, I'll try to add more rhyme, which is something that I don't usually do in my like page poetry.
I want everyone to answer that question. So I'm going to kind of go down the line. Let's go with Kahn.
I agree. My approach when I know that I'm going to write something for performance and that it's gonna I'm conscious of tone, I'm conscious of pauses, I'm conscious of where I anticipate a hell yeah from the crowd. You know, I in the back of my mind this is there because it's spoken words performance. So I to a certain degree I almost feel obligated to plan for some sort of energetic response from crowd. Where is Paige some I like the word he said is quieter. It is. I agree. It's a very quieter approach. I'm not concerned with the length of the poem. I may just stop right there, and the poem may be all of 15 seconds long. You know.
What about you, Brittany?
I think it depends on where I'm performing. To be honest, I started writing in slam, and when you're performing and it's a competition, right, then you have to be very sure that your audience is going to like quickly understand and digest and resonate with what you're saying, which I think maybe involves a little bit more explaining than what I would do if I'm writing and just trusting my reader to, you know, reread if they need to or pull it, you know, to pull the information together. But I do think that even if I'm writing something for the page, I try to be very conscious about what does this sound like. Like I read it out loud to myself. I try to place my line breaks well. I think about how is this going to sound for the person who is reading it. So I think that part of the process is similar. Again, the only thing that's different is the audience. So if I'm doing a feature, then the poems that I'm reading are the same poems that I'm having published. If I'm slamming, it might be a little different though.
Phoenix, what about you?
I largely agree with what's been said across the board. I think Kweku stated it beautifully. For me, I am 90% a performance poet. So I spend more time on the page absorbing reading so that I can teach kids poetry. But for me, totally old school, completely about orating, getting the word, I think about words, sound, impact, power. That's always what I'm trying to bring to the stage with my work. So when I approach work, it's always, what is this going to sound like when it comes out of my mouth? And much like Kahn, I'm a poet. I know how to manipulate an atmosphere. So I know how to pull out the exact reaction that I want to get from people. So like Kahn, I'm expecting the hell yes or the you go girls or right on. Like those are the responses that I'm expecting because I'm brilliant. So I pull out the genius in the audience so that I can shine my own brilliance on them.
So, what about you, Mars?
Yeah, so I think that I'm going to have a very different perspective, and I've had experience from, the sort of like spoken word and side, like slam side of things, and also the page side of things. And I think that there's been moments where within our literary community, we've had to have deep conversations about this very question because this question has traditionally been used to sort of separate writers, right, and poets specifically, and really get into the meat of like who's legitimate and who's not, right? And I think that I want to call that out because I think that it's something that has existed throughout time. And when we think a lot about what this exhibit has offered us, and all of us being Black writers, there's a way in which all of us have had to deal with the ways that people have tried to illegitimize our work. So one thing that I prefer to see is the possibilities that exist in both. And I think that regardless of if you are touching your words on a stage or if you are laying it out on a page, there are opportunities that exist in each. And there's a specific kind of beauty and music to language in general, right? And it's about what are the intentions that you're bringing if you are going to speak that poem out loud, if you are going to put that poem on the page, right? There's some work that I get to engage with on the page that does something different visually to challenge the reader that doesn't necessarily translate on stage or could, but requires different tools. So I don't really see the two as separate. And I've been really challenged by just sometimes where this could place writers in how it sort of either professionalizes us or doesn't.
Thank you, Mars. And this is really touching our audience a lot. I can see, I don't know, you can't see the responses right now, but they are really responding well to what you all are saying. And I'm going to, I think Brittany had a response to that. Did you? No. Okay, great. So now we want to hear from Mahogany.
Yeah, I think I'm more like Phoenix. I'm like really 100% performance poet. I haven't published anything on the page. So for me, it's about just being true to my voice. And I think in being true to my voice, I'm always looking for a way to twist it, a way to make.
Your mic went off. Your mic went off.
There we go. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. I'm always looking for ways for my audience to say, oh, wow, I didn't think about it like that, or I didn't see it like that, right? But yeah, honestly, just kind of want to be true to my own voice, and I always just want to have a sense of rhythm and honesty.
Thank you all. I mean, everyone is really, they're resonating with every response that you had for that particular question. And so, yes, well, yeah. Deborah Thomas writes, what is your connection with Inside Out Literary Arts, and how can other people be involved? Thank you, Deborah. So I know that Phoenix, you worked with Inside Out for a long time.
Yes, I have been hovering around Inside Out since Justin Rogers and Brittany Rogers were Inside Out participants. That's how long I've been around. And now Justin is one of my favorite bosses. Currently for Inside Out, I am a teaching artist. I am the coach of the Inside Out Youth Performance Troupe, who this year were sponsored by Toyota. They are fabulous. And I am currently overseeing the Youth Advisory Board, which is a group of young individuals who actually work as a small board of directors to inform Inside Out the things that they'd like to see happen within the organization. So that is my connection. I also saw in the comments someone asked how they can get involved. You can, if you would like to get your youth involved, please go to www.insideoutdetroit.org. Check on our after school programming, or feel free at the end, they'll put up all of our links where you can connect with us. Feel free to do so. Any person in this Zoom can give you access to Inside Out. They're all teachers. Thanks.
So I see a lot of head nodding among the poets. Anyone else want to talk about their experience with Inside Out Literary Arts? I know Brittany Phoenix mentioned that you came in as a student. Is that correct?
That is. I joined Citywide Poets when I was in maybe 10th grade. Was that 2002? So I feel old right now. a little bit. So I joined in 2002. I was a student. I participated in the program in the very beginning under the wonderfully brilliant Matthew Osman and the wonderfully brilliant Erica Foreman, who is one of my mentors to this day. And then I went to college. I went to Eastern for 2 years. I came back. And by that point, Inside Out had a group called Citywide Agents, which was for college-aged writers who wanted to engage in their craft. And I think that's really where I became more of like a professional poet, if you will. That's where they were sending us out to teach workshops. And what I loved about Inside Out is that they really allowed us to engage as though we were professionals. So, I'm 19 showing up to the Ruth Ellis Center and running workshops and leading series with David Blair, and things like having an organization take chances on me like that is something that I think is irreplaceable. It's something that I has literally changed the course of my life. It's where I met my best friend. It's where I met my husband. That's where I've met my mentors. And currently I am the after school Citywide Poets teacher, I guess. I was looking for the right language, but I lost it, for Cass Tech. So I run a site at Cass Tech. And as long as I've been teaching, I've ran a site at every school that I've taught at.
So does anyone else want to comment on that particular question before I go on to the next one?
I just want to speak on it really briefly because of Inside Out, I discovered how much I really loved artist teaching. I randomly just wanted to run a workshop. Someone threw me an opportunity. It was like, I think it's a writer's retreat that happens in the spring. I did it. And after I did it, I left, went in the bathroom, cried, and was like, oh my God, this was the most life-changing experience ever. Can I please do more? Went to Elise, told her I was a writer, primarily was a rapper, but loved poetry and would love the opportunity. And she extended that to me, I think it was 2013. And I've been blessed and honored to, even out of state, still be able to facilitate in different capacities. And I don't know, Brittany, when you were just sharing that you've been doing this, and to see who you are as not just a professional, but definitely as a professional, and to think oh my gosh, look at what this work is producing, and to think of who you are just holistically as a person and a mom and an artist. It's beautiful. So, I mean, I'm just grateful to just kind of be a part of that legacy work. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I know a lot of people are interested in being more involved with Inside Out Literary Arts and just finding out how to follow the poets that come from Inside Out. And so I want to go on to the next question. And this is from Elise, yes, Alizé, I believe. Holman? I apologize if I said that wrong, but do y'all find that poetry or any piece has to have a concise story or beginning, mirror, and end? That's a deep question. So I get that as, do you have to have a storyline for a very specific storyline for your poetry when you enter it as a writer? Does it have to have like does your story have to mirror the beginning or the end of something? I believe that's what is being said. Kahn.
I would say yes and no. I've always looked at a poem the same as I would look at a photograph, you know, or even a novel to a certain degree. You know, a poem is a moment. You know, a poem can be the moment a raindrop falls into a puddle in the alley, and just that one moment can be a poem. But a poem can be a rainstorm that ends a drought, or it can be a rainstorm that floods a continent. You know, so to say it has to be a concise story or beginning, mirror, and end, to a certain degree, that question maybe implies that there's some sort of numerical value or length to it. And no, it's just a moment. A poem is a moment. A long moment, short moment, any moment, a poem is a moment.
Thank you. You know, Mars, I'm looking at your eyes. And so I really want you to tell me what you think about that statement.
Yeah, I've been just really thinking a lot about what is poetry in sort of like this question that's been asked, right? And I think so. I'm a person that reads a lot of collections, right? I just read 3 collections of poetry since the start of this year, right? And for me, this question sort of leads me to another question, which is what do we want to get out of collections that we're reading, right? Especially when we're thinking a lot about poems. With poetry, I think we have more questions than answers, right? And if I'm coming away from a poem with the answer, which could be that end of the story that you're referring to, then I'm not surprised by what I wrote. And I have to go back and ask myself, well, why did you come up with the end, right? I think the other side to that is always thinking a lot about how do you close a piece at the same time, right? So it's not that we reach a destination point, it's that we reach a certain level of resolve in that particular poem. And I think this also leads poets to writing over and over again about the same thing. One thing that I really love to think a lot about is like, what are my obsessions right now, right? Am I obsessed about thinking about what it means to be Black and trans and claim the space of longing and what that means for my body, right? And how do I just keep getting curious about that versus getting to the destination of having the answers to those questions? And I think sometimes with storytelling, right, we kind of push ourselves to that end, push ourselves to that resolve, push ourselves to sort of, I guess, kind of figure it out. And with this question, I think, I guess I would answer it that poetry is not a concise piece of storytelling, but a collection can be, right? Picking up a full length book can be that conciseness that you're looking for in a story, or it could just lead you to more questions for you to, keep uncovering. So I don't know, maybe that doesn't answer it, but that's how I would answer it right now.
Nice. And so I don't know if Kweku wants to answer that question, but if he does, the following question is from Alana Gracie. How did you know when you had found your writer's voice? So Kweku, you can start with the last question and roll right into this question.
Yeah, I think I'll go in that order. So as far as finding my voice as a writer, it's interesting because I grew up with a pretty bad stutter. So I was very like shy to like speak in public. But so poetry was something that I would do to like practice public speaking. So I knew that I found my voice as a writer when I was able to memorize my poems and recite them with confidence. And I feel like going back to the question about does a poem have to be a concise story, I think as Black writers, we have the opportunity to lean on our heritage. You know, like African storytelling, orality, I think a lot about like simultaneity and this idea of eternity. So we can play with the like linear scale of stories that like have been handed down to us from like people who like spoke English, you know, like Westerners, Europeans, etc. And I feel like while there are many great poems that like follow a linear sort of like temporality, I think that as Black writers, I really enjoyed messing with it. Being like, how, like, what does it mean to start a poem at the end and then end at the beginning, or just stay in the middle, kind of like how Kahn was talking about, just being in that moment. So yeah.
So are you guys ready for the next question, or do you want anyone wants to chime in on this one? So I will go on to a question from Wendy Hill. I believe she's in Chicago. So, question related to the exhibit. Some say photos are poems on film, and we know that many feel that great poems create images in our minds. Are any of you photographers as well, and describe the differences or similarities if so?
I probably should let Kahn go first because he is I love his photography. But just as a hobby, I took up photography and I found that it's a similar type of storytelling. You know, it's a similar type of finding an image, capturing a moment, and hoping that the way that you captured it, it just unfolds. And I think it's the same thing with writing. I find most writers, most creatives, actually tap into photography at some time because, again, I feel like it's just a form of storytelling.
Thank you for the compliment, Mahogany. I appreciate it. I'll pay you the $10 when the Zoom is on.
I think somebody's frozen.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
I would say the creative outlet and the actual creating. You know, like I heard there was a poet, I believe it was Lucille Clifton. She says, I think a lot about a word. And so there's times when, you know, the editing process of a poem, no matter how long or how short, you're going through those lines maybe for a year, you know, if not weeks and months and days, because, you know, you want every word to be there for a reason. You know, you're going over it and you're editing, you're reading and saying that, you know, you're trying to use to some extent the few words possible to say exactly what you want to say, how you want to say it, and really visualize that message. And photography, you're doing the same a lot. You know, if you're taking a picture of a kid chasing bubbles, you might have 250 photographs of that kid chasing bubbles, but you're looking for the one picture that tells the best story of that moment, the one picture that really tells the story of the image of the energy of that kid chasing those bubbles. You know, there's gonna be one, and so you can't just snap 5 photographs within that moment, within that litany of energy, and say, okay, I got the picture. You know, you're gonna take 100, you're gonna take 200 pictures because you want the as the famous line is, you want the decisive moment. You know, and in poetry, you know, you're doing the same thing. You know, you're stringing words, lines, images, you know, and as you write and long enough, meaning that, you know, as you grow old and you're writing and you establish your voice, you know when you got it. And even when you think you got it, you know, you let your friends edit and they can tell you if you ain't got it or not.
Thank you. You know, we're getting so close to the end of our time. There's one question left, and that's from Darius Mitchell. And he wants to know what energizes you about writing and what exhausts you.
I can chime in and say that something I find energizing is first off, learning new things, right? There are times where I read a poem and I feel like it so deeply answers something that I've been thinking about or resonates something that I've been thinking about that it makes me feel like I'm seen, even if this is a writer who who doesn't know me, who I've never met a day in my life, or maybe gives voice to something that I have experienced that I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know other people felt this way. Or oh, this is like the perfect way of explaining this, or this is the perfect way of thinking about it. So it really, I think poetry expands my thinking a lot, and it also expands my capacity to love, to generate, to involve myself in things, to try to be more generous, to try to a lot of things that I think is energizing about poetry. Perhaps what is exhausting is that emotional weight sometimes, right? Of either trying to figure out how to say what I'm trying to say, or likewise, sometimes of the thinking of meditating, like, oh my God, this is so serious or so intense. Sometimes there's a collection that maybe is challenging for me initially, and then later I grow to have a better understanding of it. And that process, it can be a little bit like work, fun work, but exhausting work. So for example, Araceli Shermai, The Black Maria, is a book that I love and adore. It made me, the way I wept reading that book on my second read, but on my first read, I was like, I don't know that I understand what's happening here exactly. Something about the form is a little baffling to me. Like, let me wrestle with it. Let me grapple with it. So I think that can be its own like type of exhaustion.
And so if anyone else can chime in very concisely, because we're kind of running out of time, it's going by so fast. 1 or 2 words about what exhausts you and what energizes you. Let's go with, I don't know, Kahn, maybe, and then go to Kweku.
Part with energy, I think the aspect of just writing energizes me. And I've been writing poems since I was in 7th and 8th grade. And I used to, I couldn't get free lunch when I was at public school. And so I would trade him to one of the kids to give poems to his girlfriend. And he'd give me, his free lunch on, sometimes even on pizza day, which was a huge deal when you're in 7th and 8th grade. So I've always been energized, whether I'm writing poems or articles or essays. I just think you have to have that in you. You know what I mean? And so what exhausts me, anytime I go down the lane of writing personal stories, I can tell other people's stories all day long writing, but when I have to go in uncomfortable spaces in my own mind, that's what Brittany alluded to, that will take you out.
All right. I think we have time for one more person to comment on this one, and then we kind of have to get into our closing. Anyone want to chime in on this final question? You can, somebody go ahead and start talking if I can't see. Anyone?
I can talk. I will say that what energizes me the most about writing, most recently, I've been collaborating a lot and learning a lot about the style of work that I'm trying to put out from Brittany Rogers. She completely reinvigorated my body of work and gave me courage in ways that I didn't have before. So I think what's most energizing about writing for me right now is bravely putting out stories that are, I'm writing a series about my mom and putting out family stories that sort of tells Black folks business and the freedom of getting that work out. So I'm not experiencing exhaustion from a real physical place as much as it is sort of emotional. These two things are happening simultaneously. I'm completely invigorated by bravely putting my truth out there and completely exhausted with the ramifications of putting my truth out there. And so, in the words of Inside Out Literary Arts, we create bravely around here. And that is the most energizing thing about my work right now. It's brave.
I think that is the perfect place to kind of end our questions and answers. But thank you to the audience for asking wonderful questions. And thank you, poets. You have done a phenomenal job. I cannot believe we only had this short amount of time to talk about this. It was outstanding. And I also want to thank Nancy Barr for bringing such a fabulous exhibition to the DIA and providing an in-depth presentation to our writers as part of the annual Inside Out Literary Arts program. Be sure to check out the websites of our writers. They are listed. They'll be coming up shortly on your screen. And please take a screenshot or do whatever you have to do to follow them, because these are writers you definitely want to know. And finally, I want to thank Elise Alusi, Director of School and Community Partnerships for Inside Out Literary Arts. Thank you for being a great partner to the DIA and spotlighting writers and showcasing the power of poetry. Everyone, please check out Inside Out Literary Arts on their website. I think that was given a little bit earlier, but it's also going to be on a final screen. And of course, you can always Google it. And that seems to be the end of our show. Please visit the DIA's website and stop by the museum to see see our galleries and our current exhibitions. As the curator said earlier, Black is Beautiful, the photography of Kwame Brathwaite will be on view until January 16th. So please catch it before it leaves. And after today's performances, you really owe it to yourselves to marry the poetry in those images, like really put them together. Thank you, everyone. I enjoyed this. I've learned a lot. Thank you, poets. I worked with many of you before, so I'm so happy that you were able to share not only your insights, but your work, your pictures, your words. Thank you.